Hi, this is Uncle Patel, and today I'm going to go over CSM Observability module, how to install it and how to use it. So this is the landing page for the CSM Observability module. So you can see here everything we support. So whether it's what arrays we support, what versions of Kubernetes, OpenShift, RHEL, what specific array versions we support, and what drivers we support. So there's a lot more info on this page. I'll link it down in the description so you know where to go. So let's get into the design. Just the design page just kind of shows you the flow of data. How do we get the data from our Kubernetes cluster to Grafana, which is the dashboard. If you go to the metrics page, you can see which metrics are we reporting on today from a metric standpoint and a capacity standpoint. So we'll start with the deployment. So we'll use Helm as a deployment tool for this. So you can see what the prerequisites are. We want to have a certain version of Helm, and we have to have one of the CSI drivers installed. So as of today, we support PowerFlex and PowerStore for this module. The first step is to create a namespace. So I've already done that. You can see the CSM PowerStore namespace I created. The CSI PowerStore is the namespace I use for the CSI driver itself. So the first step is to install the cert manager CRD. So simple copy and paste. We'll do that. So that's pretty straightforward. So the next step is to add the Dell Helm charts repo. So again, a copy and paste of that. I've already done this, so it'll give us a response thing. So we'll skip over the PowerFlex section since we're doing a PowerStore. So basically, it's asking us to copy the secret from the CSI PowerStore namespace to the CSM namespace that we created. So we'll go ahead and copy the command and change the parameters. So anywhere you see CSI driver namespace, I'll change it to CSI PowerStore. Anywhere there's the CSM, change it to the CSM PowerStore. So I've already got that installed, so hence you got an error saying it's already installed. So the next step is to take a look at the parameters of a Helm chart, but I didn't change any of the defaults. So you can see all the different parameters, but like I said, I left them all the same. So if we look down, it's asking us to create a values.yaml file, and I'll show you what mine looks like and where to get this data from. So if I go into the folder that I created, so I did a clone of the repository. So see the values.yaml file. If I open that up, you'll see the contents of it. Like before, I left all this the same. The only difference is I changed the PowerFlex enabled to false. It was true by default. You do have to have a specific version, so don't try to use the latest version of the different OTel and Nginx containers. It does have to be those specific versions. But if we go back to the page, you can see here's the link to a sample YAML file. So again, it looks like what I set up before. Again, the only difference being I got rid of the PowerFlex section since I only have a PowerStore in this environment. So next is just from the Helm install command for the observability. So I'll paste it in here. I'll just change the value to CSM PowerStore. Pretty straightforward. Says it's good to go. And then I can take a look at the pods in that specific namespace and show that those pods are up and running. So next we will go into the installation of Grafana and Prometheus. So, we just review here that we've completed all the steps that we need to for the observability module. So we'll go into Prometheus and Grafana. So you can see some info. If you want to alter the Helm chart, again, I didn't. I kept a lot of the defaults. So again, we have to create a YAML file. So just did a copy and paste of that into a YAML file. Didn't change any of the defaults except for the job name. Not that it really matters, but instead of metrics PowerFlex, I changed it to metrics PowerStore. And you can see the hotel collector below the specific port name. Again, that's the default, didn't change anything there. I'm not using Rancher, so skip that part. Then we have to add the repo, update the repo, and then just issue the install command. I've already done the repo part, so I'll just go ahead and issue the Helm install command to install Prometheus with the values file that I created. So that's installed pretty quick, and it will give you a command on how to get the node IP and node port if you wanted to access the pod and log into the interface for Prometheus. But here you can see it's running. The container's going to take a bit, but it'll finish here in a minute. So next I will go to the Grafana part of it. Same concept here. I don't require this decryption certificate. My lab environment doesn't need it. But again, you create a YAML file with these specific values. So if you see here, there's a specific version of Grafana. I haven't tried a newer version. I just left it at the default. You can create a credential, but it uses the default admin. You'll change the password soon. And there's a list of plugins that you'll see are required for this all to work. So as long as you have them in the YAML file, which are there by default, you don't have to install them later on. So everything else I left alone. So we'll do the same thing here. We'll add the repo update, which again I've done already, and then we'll go ahead and issue the install command. So again, I'll change the CSM namespace to the one I have, CSM PowerStore. Just like Prometheus, right? Same concept. You'll get the command to get the node IP and node port. I'll go ahead and take a look at all the pods to make sure everything is up and running. So you can see here, the Prometheus and Grafana pods are happy. So the next step is to actually go and configure Grafana. So if you go up to the Grafana section, you'll see some of the parameters that we have to set up, the data source for Prometheus and the simple JSON. So now we're going to actually log into the Grafana UI. So you can issue that command that you see above, or you can get the services for everything in that namespace, and you can see the port number that is required. So to get to that, you just open up a web browser, go to the IP of your primary Kubernetes node, and then add the port number on there. You can see admin was a default. It's going to ask you to change it. So to configure the data sources, click on the settings or gear icon, go to data sources. And these two were there because we put them as part of the plugin, as part of that YAML file. So they're there by default. So if you go to the documentation, it tells you what parameters to use for both. So for the simple JSON, really the only thing that we have to change, at least in my lab, is to skip the TLS verify. Everything else is fine using the defaults. So make sure that's checked, click save and test, and it'll say the data source is working, and it will save that. And now we'll do the same for Prometheus. So if we go into Prometheus and go back to the documentation, you'll see what is required there. So here we need the Prometheus IP and port information. This was something that we could get via that command that we showed earlier, the get SBC. So if we go back here, you can see that the node port is 31092. So again, same as before, we'll issue the IP address of the primary Kubernetes node and that port number. And then we can do the skip TLS verify. And that should be everything. Go ahead and hit save and test, and you'll see that everything is working. So the last part is to import the dashboard. So we have a couple dashboards, the performance dashboard and the volume topology dashboard. So we'll do the volume, no, we'll do the performance one first. So simple copy and paste. So if you go ahead and copy this, and you click on the little plus sign and do import, and then just paste the values and hit import, and you'll see the dashboard already got some data going. We'll do the same for the other one to show us the capacity info. So if you go to the volume topology, same, go ahead and copy that to the clipboard, paste it into here, load, imports, and you can see a couple volumes that I've got there already, right? So you kind of see all the different things you can filter by, some pretty extensive information. I can filter by storage system, I can sort by the size, I can look at all the storage classes, a specific driver if I've got multiple in there. I can sort by the namespace, so it's pretty descriptive if I'm a Kubernetes or a developer admin that doesn't want to bug the storage engine to get all this info. I can look at it all from this dashboard. So I'm going to start some workloads so you can actually see this. So I've got a namespace called test power store. There's a pod in there that has some persistent storage. And again, the namespace you use for your production pods doesn't have to be the same as the namespace that the Grafana and Prometheus are installed in. So I've got this data one mount point here. So I'll go into there and start generating some workloads so we can see some data in the graphs. So if I go to the Power Store UI, I can go ahead and click on all my storage, my volumes, and the name of my CSI volume here will actually match what I see in the Grafana dashboard. So if I take a look at the performance, you can start seeing some data populating. I can go into Grafana and I will see the same information, right? So again, now as an end user, I can see my performance of my volumes without having to go to a storage admin to help troubleshoot an issue that I may be having. So I can do it all through here, right? Typical Grafana stuff. I can look at data at a historical standpoint, over time. I can rank top 10 volumes. I can sort them. I can filter by volume. I can filter by the array. So it's pretty extensive with what you can do. So that's all good, right? We've installed it, we've seen it working, and it's fine the way it's installed. But there's some issues with the way that we would deploy this in an easy method, right? So, for example, if I go into my Grafana container that I've got there, and I go and reboot it, for example, right? What's going to happen? So let's go ahead and log into it and reboot the container and see what happens. So issue reboot, if I go back to the UI, you'll start seeing some errors pop up for a little bit while that container is restarting. But an interesting thing happens when it comes back. So I go here, take a look at the pods again, just to make sure everything is back up. So you see the Grafana containers are all good, but I'm still getting some errors in here, right? Why am I not seeing any data? Well, if we go back into the settings, because none of this is persisted across reboots, right? We don't have any persistent storage in the Grafana pod to keep this from losing all data when we reboot. Well, we just lost that configuration data, right? So my data sources all got reset, right? I can fix this pretty easily just by entering in the IP address again of IP address and port of the Prometheus pod, and all my data will come back. But every time the container restarts, I will have to go and do this over and over again. Right. So one way to get around this, which I will create another video on later on, is how can I use persistent storage so that I can maintain the state of all this. So if I do have to restart this container for whatever reason, all the data will be there, the configuration will be there. So here I entered in the Prometheus IP again, and all the data is back. So I didn't lose the data per se, but I had to go and do all that work to get it back. And what happens now if I reboot or delete the Prometheus pod, right? Kubernetes will recreate it. Again, I get some errors here saying I lost my data source. But once it comes back, everything is fine, but all my data is gone, right? So it reset all the data. So again, how do I solve that? And that goes back to persistent storage. So thank you for watching. I will create videos on how to create persistent storage on both of those, so we can keep all that across reboots, and I'll put that in a later video. Thanks for watching. Take care.